Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Kirk Carey, and welcome to Saturday Night Light. We're going to be posting online for the next couple weeks, and I'm here in my little quarantine space at my house, and I'm sure you guys are hunkered down wherever you are, and we just appreciate you joining us tonight. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out our other videos, all you need to do is kind of scroll through the rest of this page. You'll be able to see the past videos that we've been posting, and over the next couple weeks, we're going to be talking about how to have faith and in some uncertain times. And I'm really excited to be sharing this time with you because I don't know about you, but this is a really interesting, concerning time, right? I mean, there's so many things that are going on in and around us because of this virus outbreak. And I think it gives us a really good opportunity in our lives to ask questions and to wrestle with things that we otherwise wouldn't do. Because I just want to be real. Let's be honest. Life gets full of all kinds of stuff. And there's all kinds of things that pull our attention and that pull our time. And it's rare that we can sit down and just process, right? It's rare that we can sit down and we can think about what our life is actually about. It's rare that we get these moments in time where everything stops. And I know there's a lot going on. I know there's a lot of concerning things that are going on. But I don't know about you. The other day I was sitting in my house and the world seems quiet right now. You know, things have slowed down in a real way. And I think that brings a great opportunity. We talked last week a little bit about how in times of crisis, there is, the crisis that we're responding to, and then there's the opportunity that we have on the other side of it. And I think right now, the opportunity that we have in all of our lives is to maximize the downtime and to use it to really get clear about some things in our lives. And to come out on the other side of this, whenever it ends, better. To more energized, more focused, and ready to tackle what happens. Because to be honest, I think a lot of people are wanting this just to be over and expecting things to go back to normal, whatever normal might be. I don't think that's a good way of looking at this because I don't think things are going to go back to normal, right? It's going to be a question of what is the new normal. And I think for those that really use this time wisely and that use it to really think about their lives and ask good questions, man, I think they're going to be able to really attack the new normal well. I don't think we should expect things to go back to the way they were because they're not going to. There's going to be something new. The world is going to be different. And we have a chance to position ourselves and positions our lives for whatever that new normal is. And I'm excited about taking that opportunity in my life. And that's what I've been trying to do. And I just encourage you, and hopefully these videos can help you really begin to tackle that. And I encourage you to find the time to do it. When I've been considering this whole situation, I've been thinking about it in my life. I don't know if you're like me, but I turn the TV on or I scroll through my phone and I'm kind of getting as much information as I possibly can, and I'm looking at everything that's going on. And part of me is looking at it because I fully expect at some point in the next couple of weeks for them to confirm and say, hey, there's a new vaccine. We got this vaccine. Everything's going to be fine. We've got this therapy, and the virus isn't going to be as impactful as we thought it was going to be, and I don't know if you're like that, but I am. I'm watching TV, I'm watching things unfold, and I'm thinking, okay, when are they going to say that they've been able to figure out how to handle this thing? When is that going to happen? And I find myself kind of looking for more knowledge on it. I find myself pouring through all kinds of sources and resources to try to understand more of what's going on. And then when I was considering that, I began to realize that knowing more about this isn't necessarily going to change much for me right now, right? I mean, even knowing if a vaccine is created, or I should say when a vaccine is created, knowing a vaccine exists, it might bring more peace of mind for people. It might bring more peace of mind for me, but it doesn't really change my circumstance very much, right? I mean, knowing something exists is much different than being able to apply that. Knowing a vaccine or cure or whatever exists for COVID-19 doesn't really do much unless I can get access to it, and unless I can vaccinate myself or vaccinate my kids. Knowing stuff by itself, knowing something in and of itself doesn't really change anything. Knowledge, just knowledge without application is kind of meaningless when you consider it, or at least that's what I think. I don't know if you've heard the term knowledge is power. People say that. And I don't think that that's true. I think knowledge brings the potential for power. Knowledge brings the potential for application, but just knowing something doesn't really change anything. It doesn't change anything. Being able to apply something is what changes something, right? And a vaccine that you can get access to, that changes something. But again, just knowing COVID-19 exists doesn't do much, right? I mean, I know this thing exists, and quite honestly, it existed long before anybody knew it was around. And so I think that when we stop and we really consider this whole situation, it's not about knowledge. It's not. It's about application. And then I also think about this. A vaccine is eventually going to get created. Eventually, we're going to be able to treat this thing like we have all kinds of other things. And where does that bring us then? That just brings us waiting for the next crazy thing to happen. I don't know if you've been watching the world, but the world's response to this is interesting, because 99% of the people that could get this will end up being okay. And I'm not minimizing that 1% of people that could fall ill. But what I'm saying is, we know, the greater population of the world knows that they're going to be minimally impacted by this, but yet their response is as if this thing is going to completely destroy them. That's interesting. The knowledge in and of itself about what's going on is frightening people. And I think it's frightening people because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. So I think it further shows it's not knowledge that is necessarily helpful. It's the application of what we can understand. And I think it brings up the question of, okay, so what if I can get vaccinated by COVID-19? There's going to be another COVID-19. There's going to be another difficult circumstances. And am I going to put myself right back in the same position where I'm just waiting for the next vaccine? And I don't think that that's really living. And I think when we stop and we pull ourselves back and we consider what's going on, that's really what we do so often in the human experience. We wait. We want to be vaccinated. We want to be insulated. We want to be protected from pain and from difficulty at all costs, because we know that we're actually fragile. What this whole outbreak has shown me is reminding me of how fragile I really am, how fragile life really is. With all the technology, with all the stuff that we have, we're all hunkered down in our houses right now, or in our apartments, or somewhere, because of this kind of unseen, unknown enemy that we're facing right now. We're not this dominating, all-conquering thing, the human race. It's not. I mean, think about it right now. The majority of the world is locked up because of a virus that we can't control. Man, it speaks to how fragile we actually are. And we work so hard to insulate ourselves. We work so hard to medicate ourselves. We work so hard to try to shield ourselves from the reality that there really is always a COVID-19 going on around us. And so it's brought me to the point where I want solutions and answers that go beyond vaccinations. I want solutions and answers that go beyond treating symptoms of situations. I really do. And I think most people do as well. I think we all want that, but I don't know that we understand how to go about living our lives in such a way where we can free ourselves from this fear of what's the next thing that's going to happen. How do we do that? How do we free our lives? How do we live in freedom? Right now, we're not living in freedom. I don't think the world's living in freedom. I don't think the world's being able to live in faith, for instance, that things are going to be okay. I see us living in fear. And I wonder, is there a better way? Is there a better option? Is there a different option for us to take? And then I wonder, what is that option? And I'm not saying we shouldn't listen to the CDC. I'm not saying we shouldn't listen to modern medicine. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying those things are helpful, but they're not the answer. Like, for instance, maybe you're turning on the news, maybe you're looking through your phones and you're asking questions like I am, but you're realizing that the government officials and the people who are helping, they don't really have answers for you, right? They're saying, wait and see. We're going to wait and see what happens. We're going to wait and see how this unfolds. They don't have answers. They hope to have answers, but they know that they don't yet. And, for me, I don't want to be in a position in my life where I'm always waiting for somebody else to provide me an answer. I don't want that. I don't want to constantly have me waiting for a COVID-19 to break out, and then I've got to get a vaccine, and I'm constantly putting myself in a position where I'm reacting to the circumstances around me. I'm not really living my life in freedom. And so it's brought me to this place of, man, there's what can I do? How do I live my life free from this fear, free from feeling like I've got to wait for the next vaccine, feeling like I got to wait for the next thing to be discovered so I can be okay? And when I consider that, I fall back on God. When I consider that, I fall back on God's truth. And I think for whether you consider yourself a Christian, whether you are new to God, or whether you have no exposure to God or Christianity or the Bible, I think for a lot of people, the lack of knowledge that they have about God, the lack of knowledge that they have about the Bible, makes them standoffish to getting involved in some way because of what they don't know. They're kind of afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of what they can't understand or don't understand, or they're going off of what they've heard from other people. And so they don't really engage in any kind of faith system. They don't engage in God. And I think a lot of it is rooted is because they think, I don't know enough, or how do I do this, or what is this all about? And so I think then rather than go to God for answers, and rather than begin to explore God and what he has for our lives, we stand back from God because of what we don't know. But remember what I said, knowledge isn't power. Knowledge isn't power. What do I mean by that? Well, what a lot of people don't know about Christianity, what a lot of people don't know even about how Christianity started is it didn't start with Jesus. A lot of people think that Christianity just started with Jesus. A lot of people think that Christianity started with the Catholic Church or the Baptist Church. A lot of people think that the Bible is where Christianity started. And that's not really the truth. Christianity began thousands and thousands of years ago, really with one guy. And the Hebrew religion, which is what Christianity branches off of, started with one guy. His name was Abraham. And long before there was a Bible, long before there was a church, long before there was a Christian religious system, this guy, Abraham, started to follow God. He started to begin to understand that there was this creator of this world, and he began to serve God, and he began to live his life for God before anybody else really was. And God would make promises to Abraham. This one time, God made a promise to Abraham. He said Abraham's wife was barren for most of her life. And God promised that he would give them a son. And they waited years and years and years. And I believe his wife was probably close to 100 years old when she finally got pregnant with a son. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine being pregnant with a kid at 100 years old? And they had waited for this promise to come true. And they finally had their son. They named him Isaac. And Isaac got older, and one day God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And you might think that's a little weird, but this is what happened. God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. So Abraham gets his son, and they go up to this sacred mountain, and Abraham begins to prepare the situation for a sacrifice. And right before he goes to do it, this lamb appears in this thicket, and God stops him and says, hey, you don't have to do this. I can see now that you have faith in me, that you wouldn't even hold your firstborn son from me. And, and I bless you for that. And I'm going to make a covenant with you because of that. Or a commitment is another way of understanding that. And later on, this writer is writing about that situation. This Hebrew writer is writing to other Hebrews or other Israelites or Jewish people. And he says about Abraham, he calls him the father of faith. What a cool name to have, as your title. My title at work is executive director, right? But, Abraham's title under his name was father of faith. I think that's really cool. And he's called the father of faith because of this. He's called the father of faith because faced with this difficulty of sacrificing his son, he is willing to go through it because he believes that God can raise his son from the dead, right? He reasons with himself that if God is going to be able to make his wife, allow his wife, who's 100 years old, to get pregnant and have a kid and bring that son into the world and follow through with his word, Abraham reasons with himself and says, if that's true, then no matter what happens, God can bring my son back too. He understands and he processes that even though this is what I can see in front of me, God's bigger than this situation. Again, and this is important, so important, whether you've been a Christian your whole life, whether you know about the Bible or whether you're brand new, this is true for everybody. Long before there was a Bible, long before there was a church, long before all this stuff was written down and categorized and lived out, one guy believed that God was bigger than and capable of, and God honored that decision in his life. And God decided to call him the father of faith and create an entire nation out of that guy because of that belief. So I'm bringing that story up with you because I want you to know you don't have to know everything about God. You don't have to know everything about the Bible. You don't have to know everything about church and Christianity. You don't have to know anything to be able to believe that God is bigger than your circumstance or your situation, or he's capable of providing for you. Abraham had nothing. He had nothing to go off of other than faith that God was bigger than his situation, and God provided for him over and over and over again. There's another story like that I think is awesome, and maybe you've heard of it. It's called David and Goliath. And this is a children's story that is told all over the world. And David was a shepherd. And Goliath was this crazy, strong Philistine giant. And the Israelites were in this valley, and their whole army was set up. And the Philistine army was set up on the other side. And Goliath would step to the front of the Philistine army, and he would hurl insults at the Israelites over and over and over, and hurling them, making fun of them. And David is sent from his dad to his brothers that are on the front line of this fight. And he's bringing them supplies. And David comes across the valley and he hears and he sees this Goliath hurling insults at God's people. And he becomes furious and he goes to the king and he goes, what is going on? Why isn't anybody tackling and fighting this guy? And they all explain about how he's strong and how he's, Goliath can't be beaten, and David's just this young boy. And David's like, I'm going to fight this guy because God is bigger than this giant. God is bigger than this situation. We're God's chosen people, and we're sitting here afraid of this guy who is insulting God. What are we doing? And everyone's just kind of like, David, you're crazy. And David's like, you know what? I don't even need you guys. I got this. They try to put all this armor on him. They try to do all this stuff. And David's like, I don't need any of that. I've got God on my side. I don't need any of this other stuff. I've got God. And he goes down to this river and he picks up a bunch of rocks and he goes out to face Goliath. And Goliath laughs at him because, like, what are you doing? And David puts this rock in his sling, flings it around his head, throws it at Goliath's head, knocks him out, and kills him with a rock. I mean, and then they chase the Philistines away. David goes on to become king after Saul, and he goes on to become this great king. And God says this about David. You know, God loves and appreciates David's heart so much that Jesus is actually sent through the family lineage of David. He cares about David's heart towards him so much that he says that there's really nobody greater in God's eyes on earth other than David. And he loves him so much that Jesus comes from his family. That's awesome. But you know what was true about David as a little shepherd boy? He didn't have the Bible. He didn't have church. He didn't go to church every Sunday. He didn't know that much. He didn't have that much. He believed that God was bigger than these circumstances that were in front of him, and he applied that. And he didn't need all this other stuff. He just needed to know and apply that God was bigger than. And with a little rock, he destroyed a giant. And why I think these stories are so powerful for our current situation, and why I think this relates to how to apply faith in our life, is I think a lot of us don't apply faith. We don't apply things in our life because we think we have to know something. We just think that there's something that we have to know to be able to do it. And I don't think that that's the deal. You don't have to know everything to be able to believe something in your heart about God. You don't. And there's a lot of things that you're probably walking through right now. There's a lot of questions that you probably have, the same questions that I have. But I think that there's an answer to all of those questions. I really do. And I think that it goes beyond COVID-19. I think it goes beyond maybe your financial situation. I think it goes beyond all kinds of situations in life. Again, we don't have to know everything. And the other thing is this, is like, you can't know everything. You can't. Like, for instance, some people believe that somehow COVID-19 or viruses or these difficulties are new, right? And I think sometimes people believe that when there's new scientific discoveries or when there's new things that happen, they believe that something is new. This is brand new. This is a brand new discovery. This is a brand new creature that we found in the sea. This is a brand new something that we found in the woods. And I always have thought that that's interesting because it's not new. It's always been there. We just didn't know it was there. Does that make sense? It's not new. Anything that is true, that's really true, it's not new. It's been there. We're just finding out that it's there. I hope that makes sense for you. Like, it's not brand new. The difficulties of these viruses are not brand new. The fact that viruses are real are not new. They're not. They've been around. They are around. We just don't know that they are. We don't know that they are. And when you think about that in retrospect to your life, there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of pressures. There's all kinds of stuff that you don't know is out there that can have an impact on your life. And again, we can just wait to find out, and then we're going to put ourselves in the position of, well, I'm going to have to vaccinate. How do I protect myself from this new thing? Or we can ask ourselves the question, how do I live my life in freedom beyond all these things? Again, we don't throw away what experts are saying. We don't throw away good, healthy habits. We don't throw away all that stuff. We don't not get vaccinated. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I want to live my life in freedom. And I want hope that goes beyond my individual circumstance. And God, I think, has that for everyone. And this is what I think God says to people. He says that he says, for those that would believe that I am real and that I'm a rewarder of those who seek me, those are the people, those kind of people are the people that I am ready to do anything for. Think about Abraham, that story. Think about David. For those that God wants to reward, those people that believe that he is and that believe he's a rewarder of those who seek him. And so how you can apply faith in your circumstance, in your situation, how I can apply faith in my life, in my situation right now, is by believing that God is, and he's a rewarder of those who seek him. And by looking at something like COVID-19 and practically saying, God is bigger than this. By looking at the financial difficulties that you could be experiencing in your life right now and saying, God is not limited by my lack of finances. Does that make sense? Don't limit God to the money that's in your bank account. Don't do that, and that's what we do. We can limit God to the money in our bank account. We can limit God to the amount of food that we have in our pantry. We can limit God to the circumstances that we can see and understand. But again, all I'm doing when I do that is limiting God to what I know. But what God says is not about what you know. It's about what you believe. I'm not saying we shut our brains off and we don't rationalize, but what I'm saying is there's something beyond what you can know. There's something beyond what you can see. There's something beyond what you can rationalize when it comes to God. And that is the world of faith. And so we can apply faith by understanding a simple truth, and that is that God's bigger than. And then the question becomes, how do we apply that? How do I apply that in my life? Right? Okay, well, I want to talk about that as we kind of end our discussion. We apply it the way that Abraham did. We apply it the way that David did, by acting. All right? We act on our faith. Okay, so David went down to the river. He picked up the rock. He faced Goliath. He acted on his faith. Abraham took Isaac up to the mountain and acted on his faith. And he made the first action that was taken is an internal action. So the first step, I think, for you and me to gain a position of faith over our circumstances right now is, let's think about this for a moment. What are the things that you're concerned about? Maybe you could get a pen and paper if you have it near you. And you could ask yourself, what is it that I'm fearful of? What is it that I feel like I'm lacking? What is it that I'm concerned about? What are the fears? What are the anxieties? What is the stuff that I'm working through right now? Maybe I would encourage you to think about writing those things down. Writing those things down. And as you write those things down, I would encourage you to ask this question. Do I believe that God is limited by these circumstances? Do I think that God's limited by these circumstances? Do I believe that God is bigger than these circumstances? And if the answer is no, then I think what you do is you make an internal decision to say, okay, I'm going to decide right here, right now, that God is bigger than COVID-19. God is bigger than my financial difficulty. God's bigger than these things. First step, internal decision. God is bigger than. God is more than. God is not limited by. Okay? Second thing to do is then to act on that. Act on it. Don't continue to allow yourself to try to go out and gain all this knowledge and all this stuff so that you can feel better about your circumstance. Act on the fact that God is bigger than. How? Don't walk around in fear. Don't walk around in anxiety. When it comes over you, stop. Do it again. God is bigger than this situation. God's bigger than the fact that my job might be laying me off. Because you know what? I can get another job and he's going to bring me another job. God, I believe that you're going to bring me another job, and walk in that. Go start writing out your resume. Don't wait for you to lose a job to start trying to get your resume in order. Act in faith that you are hireable. Act in faith that you are worth something, and be worth something. Again, like I think sometimes when people are looking, maybe you're in a position in your life where you're hoping to get married one day. Well, you have two options in that, right? Your first option could be to find yourself dating anybody who's interested in dating you. You can go out in life and you just date everybody, and hopefully you can find the one. Or you can spend your time becoming the right person. Become the person that you would want to marry. If you become the person you want to marry, you will attract the right person. That's what will happen. You could spend your time going out and dating everybody, or you could spend your time trying to become the right person. Same thing is true about work. You could spend your time trying to be stressed out about all the options and what are you going to do, or you could spend the time becoming the most hireable person you possibly can be. Get your resume in order, set up interviews, start looking for jobs now, don't wait. That's how you act in faith, is you don't let your circumstances keep you from moving forward. You keep moving forward in whatever it might be, And what I want to do, if you've made that list, if you've written down your concerns, is I want to pray with you over those things. Because I was talking to you about stuff in Abraham's life that happened thousands of years ago. I'm talking about things in David's life that happened thousands of years ago. Here's what I fully expect. I fully expect the stuff to happen in yours and my life today, this week. As you write these things down and as you walk in the truth that God is bigger than and he's capable of, and that he's a rewarder of those who seek and love him, I know that you're going to see changes happen based on the things that you're asking him about. And I'm excited to hear about them because next week we're going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about what's happened in people's lives because they wrote it down and because they walked it out. I'm excited for that. I can't wait for you to post about it. I can't wait to talk to you about it. And in closing, I'm going to pray for us. And I do it. I invite you, whether you had an opportunity to write those concerns down now, I invite you to write them down. And whether you were specific, I invite you to get specific. And I invite you to ask the question, do you really believe that God is bigger than? And maybe this is an opportunity for you to begin to believe in God. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to begin to believe in the promises that Jesus has for you. You don't have to know everything in order to do that. You just need to believe that Jesus is. You need to believe that God is and that he loves you and that he's a rewarder of those who love him and seek him. That's it. I don't care what anybody else has ever told you about following God. That's the qualifier. Believe that God is, believe that Jesus is, and believe that they are rewarders of those who seek and love him. That's the starting point. That's it. It's easy. And as you believe that, I believe and I know and I've seen that God is going to provide and your life is going to change, and it's going to change for the positive. So let me pray for us. Father, I thank you so much for this day. I thank you for this opportunity that we have in this time. And I lift up these concerns that people have. And I lift up these difficulties that we're all walking through. And I know you are bigger than COVID-19. You're bigger than viruses. You're bigger than sicknesses. You're bigger than illnesses. You're bigger than our lack of finances. You're bigger than our questions about our jobs. You're bigger than all these things. You are bigger than, and you're not limited by them. And so I thank you, Lord, that you're going to prove yourself true in all of our lives over these coming weeks. And for maybe those, Lord, that are going to make a commitment to you today as they're listening to this, I pray that you would encourage them and show them that you are true, that you love them, and that there is hope for their life now. Thank you so much for all that you do in our lives. In your name, amen. Well, look, thank you for joining us. And if there's any questions, if anything comes up, feel free to comment below. We want to hear from you. And I hope that you guys are staying safe and that you're heeding the warnings and that you're doing everything that you can to help other people who could be impacted by this virus. And I can't wait to get together with you guys next week. And I hope that you have a great week. And comment below. Please tell us all the cool things that are going on in your lives. Thanks so much.